Hi, this is Chris Smith with Local Joe's. At Local Joe's, we help local business. Hi, this is Chris Smith with Local Joe's.
This is City Pulse Newsmakers, a weekly look at the issues and the people behind them in Greater Lansing. Brought to you by City Pulse, Lansing's weekly alternative newspaper. And now, here's your host, City Pulse publisher, Burl Schwartz.
Good morning. You know the song from White Christmas, what do you do with a general when he's no longer a general? Well, what do you do with Eastern High School when it's no longer a high school? That's our topic for today. And our guests are Nancy Malo, who is the president of the East Side Neighborhood Organization. Welcome, Nancy.
Yes, thank you.
And Liz Martinez, a former state representative who is here today representing the Eastern High School Alumni Association. Welcome back, Lynn.
Thank you, Burl. Always good to see you.
Yes. And for all the way from Ann Arbor, the Quinn Evans architectural firm that is all over the country, I guess, but our friend Liz Nibby, who was the architect for the Knapp Center here in Lansing. Welcome to the show, Liz.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
All right, so I guess the question really is what to do about this building, and it's an important building. Someone from the state said it's one of the 25 most important pieces of architecture in the city of Lansing. Sparrow Health System has purchased the building from the Lansing School District, and negotiations, or at least discussions, have now started with Sparrow about the possibility of reusing the building in some fashion, and Sparrow has indicated its willingness to work with the community to determine what the best use would be. So I want to start with you, Liz, on what is happening with buildings like Eastern in the state of Michigan and elsewhere.
Well, there's a lot of large old schools that are no longer needed for schools, and communities use them for a number of different ways, often for housing, lots of different kinds of housing, private condos, rental, market rate rental, subsidized rental, they're community centers. They have a lot of options in them. They're fairly flexible buildings, so there's a lot of potential for reusing them in different ways.
And I know, of course, you haven't been consulted in any way officially on this building, but what are your thoughts about this building?
Well, it is an absolutely gorgeous school building. It is Lansing obviously was prosperous at that day and was able to put a fair amount of money into it. So it's very large, but it's also really well located because it's next to a major employer. It's only about a mile from downtown Lansing. So to me, when I see a building like that, it's like, oh, there's some real potential here for housing for sure. There's certainly an active community around it. So, is it a mixed-use building? Because it is a fairly large building.
Lynn, you were not, I believe, at the meeting with Sparrow with the CEO, Dennis Swan, but the Alumni Association was represented.
Right.
And what's your sense, what's the Alumni Association's sense of Sparrow's willingness to repurpose this building?
Well, the Alumni Association spearheaded an effort to meet with the Sparrow Health System leadership. And they met just about a week ago with Sparrow Health System leaders, and they, discussed that the building is valuable to the whole community. It's a prime piece of real estate, and many in the community, especially, the near East Side and downtown folks, are really disappointed that right at the corner of Pennsylvania and Michigan, Sparrow now has constructed a huge parking ramp that is not really an attraction on our main corridors. And so when the folks met with Sparrow, they talked back and forth in kind of a casual relationship like this, and they mentioned several things that Sparrow was interested in, including a health teaching project, you know, connected with Eastern High School and Sparrow Hospital and maybe MSU and LCC, and, you know, encourage students to go into the healthcare profession because it's one of the shortages in our community and pretty much, excuse me, all over the United States. And they talked a little bit about Sparrow's plans, and the alumni pointed out, and the preservation people, and Joan Nelson represented the East Side. And she pointed out that, you know, it has wonderful classroom opportunities, and it's a beautiful structure that people in the community are really interested in. And one of the things that was noted in the meeting is Sparrow is short of space for their continuing education programs that they are required to do. So you and I both got copies of their statements after the meeting, and they said they are strongly supporting the school bond millage, and that is kind of the first priority for the alumni and for Sparrow Hospital. But Sparrow Hospital also promised that in 2016 they would begin a planning process, and they would involve people from Sparrow Hospital, healthcare professionals, representatives of the community, and try to come up with a plan that suited the needs of all and paid attention to the historic significance of that building. So it's kind of on hold till
what
after May.
Yeah, what is the significance? I was wondering as I read that statement, why did Sparrow use that statement to point out it was supporting the school bond millage? What's the connection between reusing Eastern High School's old building and the school bond millage?
Well, you know, the alumni and the whole community is very interested and committed to continuing to have a strong, good performing high school on the East Side, because it's critical to the East Side, it's critical to the school district, it's critical to students, it's critical to the whole city. And so Sparrow, I think, decided to do that because they want to express their support for the community, the school district, and people who are really engaged in making Lansing a very strong and prosperous city.
Well, and one of the tenets of the agreement between the school district and Sparrow is that the school district can rent the Eastern High School building for 5 years.
Yes.
But if the millage doesn't get passed, where would Eastern High School go?
Exactly.
So I would think Sparrow has that interest as well. They want They want a new school built, so the old one will be empty. Nancy, you're a longtime leader on the East Side. You've had to deal with Sparrow, I am sure, many times. What is your feeling about Sparrow as a partner and trying to figure out the highest and best use of that building?
Well, many years ago, a past president, Mary Margaret Wall, she was kind of the spearhead to get the communication with Sparrow and the neighborhood group going, and went back and forth. And one of the things that was said, if we want to get anywheres on the East Side, we've got to be a good partner. Sparrow needed to be a good partner. And ever since then, the communication line between the neighborhood and Sparrow has been open. It's been very positive, bringing things before the neighborhood, because they're landlocked, and there are several, besides E&O, the East Side neighborhood, there are several neighborhood groups that surround that whole area. And Sparrow has been very, very good partners with the neighborhoods, and we wanted to continue that. They're a key point to our east side. I mean, they anchor our east side, but so does our schools.
They anchor Lansing in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
In a lot
they
of
do.
ways,
They
yes.
do. So we're excited about this whole thing. Saving our high school is key. I mean,
Saving that building.
and saving that building. It's a beautiful, beautiful building. And I agree with Lynn and the alumni that it could be used as a teaching facility for Sparrow. And maybe another part of it could be used, another section of it could be used for the resident doctors as kind of a home away from home for them, creating some small apartments for the resident doctors that work at Sparrow, because they're on call, so they have to have a place to put their head to get a few hours of sleep in between shifts. So,
Well, Nancy, let's look at what Sparrow has done over the years. It has grown and grown and grown, but I'm not aware of Sparrow ever saving a building. It tends to tear them down and build new ones. And one example that ties to this directly is Bingham Elementary School. Now, yeah, I think some people would argue it does not have the historic qualities or the beauty.
Right.
It did not have those or the beauty of Eastern. But by the same token, as somebody who went to an elementary school that got wiped off its property, there are memories people have of wherever they went to school. And we see in the East Side a great example of private business, Neogen, saving the Allen Street School and repurposing it as
And Oak Park.
And Oak Park, yeah,
Yep.
you know.
Yeah.
And, do you feel confident that Sparrow is really going to follow through? And is it really serious, do you think, about wanting to save this grand building?
I think there are enough people on the east side that are lining up that Sparrow's going to listen, not just the east side, but the whole city in itself, to listen about this building. I mean, it is listed on one of 25 in the city. I don't think Sparrow wants to have that kind of negative mark that they're going to demolish a historical building.
Could
I
chime
really
in here,
don't.
too?
Sure, go ahead.
You know, you and I both were at the planning board meeting the other evening
Right.
when we discussed the Scott House and Sunken Gardens
The
and
central
that whole
substation
property.
proposal. Yeah.
And one of the things that I noticed at that meeting is that the efforts of preservationists in Lansing now, both the Greater Lansing Historical Society and Preservation Lansing, are beginning to resonate more in the city and with city government. You know, one of the things that you and I both heard Bob Johnson state was that as they close the Eckert plant, they're trying everything possible to find a new tenant for that building and to avoid demolition.
Right.
You know, because again, it's a city landmark.
Right.
It has been here forever. It's in a beautiful neighborhood, and it's adjacent to Riverside Park, and it could be a fantastic place.
Like they did with the Ottawa Power Station.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Or for housing. You know, it's so close
To the river.
to a neighborhood and to the river. It could be very attractive housing.
Well, one of the things I wondered about, Liz, is now Sparrow, of course, and they said in
Are
their
you
statement.
calling me Liz?
No, I'm calling Liz.
You're calling Liz.
Yes,
Liz. Thank
yeah,
you.
You're welcome. It is, they talked about possible reuse as part of Sparrow, and Lynn has mentioned as a teaching facility, and Nancy has. Yeah, but of course, another option would be for Sparrow, which would be, well, we'll sell the building to somebody. Because Sparrow will still have the most of 18 acres that came along with this deal. And what do you think, in an urban setting, what do you think is the better use? Or do they compete even?
I don't know that they compete. I think it's a really large building. It has wings on it so that it can be broken down. You can sell part of it to a private developer through a condo arrangement. They could keep part of it. I think that the first thing they really need to do is an assessment of the building with what its potential uses are and what the cost might be to do that, and to see kind of what makes financial sense. But that building, again, schools are very flexible, and a building that large, you can break it into pieces. I certainly, in those kind of buildings, really like to see active uses. Education can be good because it brings a lot of the community in. Housing is good because people are there 24 hours a day. So a building like that can absorb a lot. I doubt that the hospital could use it all for education.
Right.
But I think that's where you need to get creative in how you look at it and how you break it down.
Now, I think a lot of people will say it's kind of like buying organic food versus conventional food. It's more expensive to turn it into something else than to tear it down and build something else. Is that true?
Maybe, maybe not. What we find is that by the time you get the building, clear it out, get it ready to reuse, you spent what you'd about spend to create a shell, and you have a shell that's much nicer than any new shell you would get, and the rest of the costs are about the same. And so, yeah, for the same dollars, and maybe a little bit more, you get a much better product. So, it's the trade-offs of these things, and it's really how you look at it, and how you look at the cost.
Right. Now, I know you brought some images, which we'll show to our audience, but you may want to share those with Nancy and Lynn.
So I have a couple of schools that we have done. The first one is the old Ypsilanti High School, which was done now 25 years ago, and it had been vacant for a while. It was 160,000 square feet, so a large building also in a really small town. And they were struggling with what are we going to do with it? What are we going to do with it? And they finally put it out for development and got proposals from developers and selected one to put elderly housing on it. And very interesting, the developer said, oh, we have to wipe it out, make it not feel like a school. I said, these people in this town love this building. They love it. And when it reopened, it had several principals in the building, a couple who had met when they were in kindergarten living in the building. An ex-mayor lived in the building. And it filled really rapidly, and still to this day has a pretty active elderly community living in it. So it's still a pretty beloved building, and people are very happy now that it's still there and didn't get lost. Recently, we just completed in Fremont, Michigan, their high school also. They built a new one, and what do we do with the old one? And the school district also put out a request for development proposals, and one of our clients went to them and said, we'd like to put housing in it. And this was a building that had a 1920s era building with a very large addition with a pool and a gym and all that. And it ended up that the community took the kind of public parts of the building and was turning it into a community center. The private developer took the old high school and has turned it into housing. And again, very well received in the community, and the community is very happy to see people living in it and the activity that brings to the building.
One of my favorites, when I go up north sometimes to Charlevoix, and they've taken their old high school and turned it into just a wonderful library. And it's not as big as Eastern High School, but it's not small either. And it's fun to go there every summer and just walk around this incredible library. Nancy and Lynn, you both have been involved in community organizing for a long, long time. How would you like to see this process unfold once you get beyond the school bond millage?
I think there needs to be a little more input from the surrounding neighborhoods, people that live in the area, get their feedback of what they would really want to see on that property, in that building. again, trying to figure out what does Sparrow really want to do with it. That's going to be the key to answer the question. I mean, what is Sparrow going to do with it, or what do they want to do with it? So if we know that, then talking about, you know, housing or anything else.
One of the
It's
things
kind of
that
a moot
surprised
point.
me, though, Lynn, you've been around the block a few times on political stuff. Sparrow bought this property and yet says it has no idea what it's going to use it for.
Well,
I think
buy
we
that?
all know that Sparrow is expanding
Yeah.
year
Right.
by year by year. I mean, look at the new oncology center that is under construction, where they admittedly took down the Bingham School, which did leave a sour taste, both about the actions of the school district, of Sparrow Hospital, but also about the actions of the school district. You know, I agree with Nancy. A process where the community is really engaged in serious conversation with Sparrow and the healthcare professionals, whoever they are, that Sparrow wants to work with, about what are the best uses for the building is critical. Because there are things in that building that are so valuable to the community, just in terms of our heritage, the floors, the tiles, the wooden oak, the oak woodwork that nobody does anymore. You know, the auditorium, which is admittedly in very bad shape,
But it is beautiful.
but
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
stunning.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely
and
gorgeous.
there have been pictures on the Historical Society's website about one day when they went and toured that building. And the craftsmanship in the auditorium is amazing.
Yeah. But Lynn, one
But
of the things.
what is Sparrow going to do with that? So part
Right.
of the question, as Liz points out, is for us, what does it take to build the partnerships that can really let us keep this historic building
Right.
and make really good use of it
Well,
for the
and I think you
community?
raised it. Go ahead, Nancy.
Well, but I think we've also, I'm kind of on the defense side. We have built a really good relationship with Sparrow. I mean, I'm not advocating for them, but it's taken us years to get where we are right now. And I think Sparrow is willing to work with us. We pull the community together. They're thinking on the medical terms.
Right.
What are we going to do with this building from a medical standpoint, from a community standpoint, and others? I think we can pull together and help Sparrow to bring this building into something that they will benefit by, and so will the community in some form.
You both raise a great point, because one of the things that I find really annoying is all the public money that went into restoring the Ottawa Power Station, admittedly in private hands. But the public put a great deal of money into this through state tax credits. Public can't get in to see it. They don't even have tours.
No.
This is an amazingly important building. If 20 years ago when I moved here, I referred to it as Lansing Socialist Tower, you know, because it was a publicly owned utility with this enormous tower right in the heart of town. But I would tell people, you got to go look at this thing. It's incredible. Now it's restored, and it would be so great if the public could see it. I think you raised this important question. How do we reuse this building in a way that it just doesn't become a closed building that only Sparrow has access to?
Well, here's an example. It hasn't anything to do with the building per se, but it has to do with Sparrow and working with the community. Yes, when Sparrow bought Bingham School, there was bitter taste in all of us against the school district and Sparrow, because we were told one thing and then obviously we lose the school.
Right.
In Sparrow's defense, they worked with the ABC neighborhood, and all that equipment that was on the Bingham School property, the playground equipment, was purchased by that neighborhood group because that was their only green space in the area. And they worked with the school district, paid for all of that playground equipment. When that whole thing came about with Bingham, Sparrow went to the neighborhood and they worked out a deal where now in the neighborhood, I think it's on Prospect, they have a little pocket park that Sparrow bought some of the equipment, redid the whole park. The property was a land bank property, and they're going to maintain everything for approximately 5 years for the neighborhood.
That's wonderful.
So they gave back to the
Right.
community. I mean, it's a small print, but they still gave back to the community by working through. We had to find a piece of property that would fit within the neighborhood and that Sparrow, you know, would be happy with, and that. But it was the communication that built that, and I truly believe with a group we can do the same thing with this building.
Well, and Lynn, I wonder if the voices will be there to think outside the box, think beyond. This is just going to be a building that Sparrow will use for its own purposes. It would be nice if the building is saved no matter what. But for example, one of the crying needs of the city is a performing arts center. Here
Yes.
we might have the nucleus of it in that wonderful auditorium. I could see the Sparrow Health System Performing Arts Center, but do you think Sparrow would really be open to something that's far outside the box?
It's way too early, Burl, to actually try to interpret their report of the meeting and their real interest for
And
the
they did
building.
not. I offered them an invitation to come today, and they declined.
You know, but another thing that I will say in their favor is that they are completely redoing their entrance and lobby area, and they're paying particular attention to make sure that there's a cafeteria that faces Michigan Avenue with big windows, and their reason for doing that was to make it more inviting to the community.
That's great. Well,
They're actually hoping to bring the community in.
all right. Well, we're about out of time. Sorry, Nancy. But
that's
Nancy
okay.
Malo, thank you, from the East Side Neighborhood Organization. Lynn Martinez, former state representative from the Eastern High School Alumni Association. Liz Nibby from Quinn Evans, their office in Ann Arbor. Thank you all for being on the show today. Thank you all for watching. Have a great weekend.